All right, we're back. We're back. Syracuse gets back to their winning ways against Holy Cross, but do have a do have a couple questions, right? Well, a couple concerns, right? For the most part, the offense was able to pretty much do what they wanted to do, which they've been doing for the entirety of the season. Jackson Meek stepped up. Um, Trebor was his usual consistent self. Got another touchdown. Was probably Cal McCord's. I would say this game he didn't seem like Cal McCord's main go-to target because Jackson Meeks just had a phenomenal game. But the beautiful thing about what I'm seeing in this offense as the season goes on is from the very first game I watched, I said they have a plethora of weapons, right, that they have at their disposal. And against Holy Cross, they had the full gambit out, right? Hatcher got involved. Obviously, Jackson Meeks had his best game of the season. Gills got involved. Nixon was back. Run game looked pretty good. Saw a couple of situations where they got in the I formation to, maybe just kind of get a different look because obviously sometimes when you play a team like Holy Cross and these particular type of teams, you kind of, in some instances, you kind of use it as maybe like an extended practice. And what I mean by that is you may break out some different formations, try to get some different looks to try to see how something is executed because you may obviously need to use that later in the season as more teams get film on you, right? But with that being said, Cal McCoy tosses two more interceptions, and one of them I would have to say it was due to him being under pressure, but the armchair quarterback in me would say, hey, look, even with pressure, you got to put that ball in a position where only your guy can catch it, right? So that was concerning. The run game, it had a couple of little sparks, but I did see that LaQuint Allen was a lot more involved in the passing game this particular week than he was last week. And I will say they kind of ran the same play that they ran the previous week, where Kyle McCord, instead of dumping it off to LaQuint Allen right there in the flat, he threw it to I can't remember the receiver that he threw it to, and the guy ended up catching the interception. But this week they ran it, threw it right to LaQuint Allen, and turned it upfield and got a first down. And even on the interception that he threw, towards the end of the half, where they were trying to, I guess they were trying to get into field goal range, which that made the only, that was the only logical reason to throw that. LaQuint Allen was right there in the flats. It was a check down, right there, and Cal McCoy just throws it to Trevor Pena, and there's like there was no way of that pass being completed. So I don't know if Cal McCord is trusting his arm a little bit more. He's getting a little bit more, excited, feeling like he can, make throws that he can't. But this game was closer than I expected it to be, right? I mean, I really did. The two touchdowns that Holy Cross got early in the game were just, blown coverages, just blown assignments. I was also surprised that even when Syracuse sent pressure, mainly in the first half, it seemed like that Holy Cross had an answer. They had it protected up very well, and they were able to expose Syracuse on the back end. So again, that was concerning. That was concerning to me. But the biggest concern to me is just simply the amount of pressure that Holy Cross was getting. Holy Cross ended up getting 5 sacks and 11 tackles for losses. Think about that for a second. 5 sacks, 11 tackles for losses. Now, some people could chalk it up to say, well, man, human nature. They go into a game feeling like, well, we're their superior opponent, so we can be a little lax because we feel like that, once we kind of put a little pressure on them, they're going to lay down. Which, again, like I said, the offense was, doing its usual thing. And you would think that maybe a team like Holy Cross eventually will say, all right, well, we're outmatched. We're there's nothing we can do. They didn't do that. They didn't lay down, right? They fought hard for the entirety of the game, and that was one of the biggest things that I took away. And that's again another concern that I have is that if for whatever reason, again, I don't know if it's just players. Obviously, Coach Brown, and he'll take full responsibility along with the rest of the coaching staff. But the team, for whatever reason, just gets laxed at the wrong moments. Right? Going back to the Georgia Tech game. Obviously, after the game, I spoke about how Coach Brown stated that the game plan was for Georgia Tech. They were expecting Georgia Tech to do this one thing, and they didn't do it. And then we're talking about a botched, miscommunication on the onside kick, and then we're coming down to a big third down play where Cal McCoy is able to hit Gadsden, and that pretty much solidifies the victory. But the team, they have to be more consistent and more committed to being consistent because, again, the offense when it's clicking, I don't think it's very many teams. Well, let me pause for a second. Well, no, I don't have to pause. When the offense is clicking, I don't think it's very many teams that can, slow them down. Because you got LaQuint Allen, you got Nixon, you got Meeks, you got Hatcher, you got Gills, you got Trevor Pena, right? So you have a myriad of weapons that will make any team have problems in terms of trying to match up with these guys, right? But for whatever reason, the offensive line, it's to me in many instances it's starting to regress a little bit. Now, obviously, giving us some, they gave up 4 sacks in the first half, against Stanford. So it's kind of, Stanford's front is pretty good. So you're kind of like, okay, well, that's a ACC opponent. So in the second half, obviously they cleaned it up, but you gave up 5 sacks against Holy Cross. Now, obviously, Michael Johnson, took, took a sack, in the second half once they put him in the game, but you still allow for your starting quarterback to get sacked 4 times, and that's 8 sacks over the course of 2 weeks. So, but that's just kind of a general overview. But I broke it down by, first half, second half. So, I just kind of go through this. I already talked about McCoy getting guys involved, Holy Cross D line getting pressure, and albeit when you look at the box score, they didn't allow for Holy Cross quarterback to have many rushing yards, but I did see instances in the first half where he was able to break contain. They would send three, drop eight, no one was there to contain, which kudos to them. In the second half, they cleaned it up. They sent a blitzer in to kind of reinforce one side because in the first half it was like the defensive ends were working to the inside. You dropping eight, and the quarterback has a free go to either roll to the right or roll to the left. So in the second half, that was something that they cleaned up, right? So I have to commend them for that. Um, Yes, and I just spoke about that. Dropping back in eight made it worse. But usually, when you drop eight, it should be harder for the quarterback to complete passes, but it simply did not. Holy Cross, when they dropped eight, it was almost as if a situation where they only dropped 4 or 3. Like they found their guy, right? Pass rush in the first half, again, pretty much non-existent to me. Again, like I said, that was just something that they did in the second half. They increased the pressure. Brought up both the touchdowns were coverage bust. And again, you cannot do that against better teams. I mean, you just simply can't because better teams have better personnel, better players that probably could take advantage of some situations where it's not a bust. It's just simply a situation where they found the weakness and they were able to exploit it. So that's something that they're gonna clean up. Um, the run game was effective in the first half. For the most part, it was effective, but I still felt like it could have been better. The total numbers for the run game: 27 rushes, 137 27 rushes, 137 yards, 1 touchdown. That's between 3 backs, right? So obviously you want that to be better, but in the first half, it was effective, right? It was effective for the first half. Um, Talked about the touchdown, interception right before the half. Allen wide open, right, right down there. Didn't really kind of see what the time was on the clock, and obviously, right now, you kind of. I mean, I don't know, right? You pushing for points, but then at the same time, you want to kind of be, leery of that because again, we're talking about a situation where against Stanford, Kyle McCoy threw an interception. It wound up being a pick six. So you kind of want to be a little bit more cautious in those particular situations because again, this game in the first half was literally a single possession game. You know what I mean? And the momentum was not swinging either way. No team seemed like to have a full control of it. Syracuse in certain instances did, but that first blown coverage touchdown, it kind of like the momentum kind of went back to Holy Cross, and then it kind of evened out towards the end of the first half. So on the second half, talked about it. Interception, forced by pressure. Again, you're going to play better defensive fronts, right? Stanford, for whatever reason, they were able to find, you know, particular matchups. And to me, looking at the game, it seemed like it was the right guard that was giving up, quite a bit of pressure, and even the right tackle, in many instances where it seemed like the pressure was coming on Cal. So, that's going to get cleaned up. I don't know if it's, you know, making the competition in practice or whatever the situation is. But obviously that's something they're going to get cleaned up, because there are going to be some teams later on in the season that are going to be able to mimic what Holy Cross did. Again, I'm not, I'm just a general observation. When you kind of look at a team like Holy Cross, you're not saying that they have, you know, top 1% athletes, along the defensive line, right? And I wouldn't say Stanford had either. So again, that has to be something to get cleaned up. And Holy Cross, they didn't allow for Randy Gatson. He's been pretty much quiet, the past 2 weeks. Maybe it's just the way the teams are scheming it up. But again, like I said, they have a plethora of weapons. You know what I mean? So if you leave any of these other guys in one-on-one situations because you want to overly, emphasize a game plan on Gatson, they have the ability to hurt you. It's just about Kyle McCord just, getting back to how he was, against Georgia Tech, right? In which he's very efficient. He's not forcing anything, because again, in this offense, just based again, I'm probably gonna use the word weapons 100 times in this video, but you don't have to force anything. You don't. Meeks, Hatcher, Trevor Pena, Gadsden, LaQuint Allen, Gills again. He scored a touchdown in the game, right? You don't have to force anything to any of these guys. You don't have to force the ball to Trevor Pena. He's gonna get his. You don't have to force it to Gaskin. He's gonna get his. They put a lot of pressure on defenses to cover these guys. But again, all of that is gonna be for naught if they do not clean up the pad, if they do not clean up the protection. They have to clean up the protection, right? They have to. Um, so and the sack fumble, it could have been devastating if the ball didn't roll out of bounds. That could have been devastating, right? So again, and again, that comes from that wouldn't again, that's not from the blind side, that's from the sight side. This again, like I say, right tackle, right guard. Like whatever the situation is with that, again, like I say, is troubling. And obviously you got UNLV coming. So obviously I'm sure they're gonna try to figure out, okay, what was Holy Cross able to do? What was Stanford able to do, right? To put this pressure, and they're gonna try to do it. So again, that's gonna be an interesting game to watch. UNLV top 25, they're undefeated. Made a change at quarterback. The quarterback they had a nice debut. So it's gonna be interesting, right? I don't think before the season, even though I believe UNLV won 8, maybe 9 games last year. I wouldn't necessarily say that. Well, at least me, right? And this just may be my ignorance, right? But I don't think coming into this season, um, you may have looked at it and said, UNLV is going to be a game where, it could come down to the wire, right? And very well could, right? So, I'm very intrigued to watch that game and see how that game unfolds. Um, Again, like I said, not much pressure from Syracuse, but again, I felt like they did a much better job in the second half, especially towards in the fourth quarter. They sent a little bit more pressure, and it seemed like the pressure was a little bit more efficient or more effective, because it was assignment based, right? Everybody, gap integrity, all that stuff. So they were able to, they were able to put some pressure and get some sacks. In the second half, King Joseph, made a big presence in the second half. So hopefully he can continue to play at this particular level, because one of the things that I'm noticing looking around the rest of the ACC and things like that, if you're not able to get pressure on a quarterback, you're in trouble, right? And so Syracuse should know this firsthand, right? Seeing that Holy Cross and Stanford was able to get pressure on Kyle McCord, you looked at they reaped the benefits. They were able to throw a pick six, and kudos, same thing for Syracuse, right? Again, You got pressure on their quarterback. He threw a pick six, right? So, and that pick six was very much needed, right? Very much needed. I know the defense got more aggressive in the second half. Like I said, the pick six by Bellamy was big time, and offensive line is going to play better because UNLV is not a pushover. Just kind of looking at it right now, I did not know this, but UNLV is rushing for an average 283 yards a game, and while Syracuse did a very good job against Holy Cross, 25 carries holding them to 9 yards, it's been up and down, right? It's been up and down. Obviously Georgia Tech came in, big time run team, and aside from the two quarterback runs, they did a fantastic job in stopping Georgia Tech's run. So whatever that game plan was, which I know there was a game where they put Fidel Diggs at linebacker to be a little bit more physical. I've only watched UNLV play one time this season, but I really wasn't just really paying attention to them so much so as I was paying attention to the opponent. But probably gotta go back and watch them again, right? Just kind of trying to get a feel of what it is that they're doing. But that is going to be something that Syracuse is going to have to be ready for. They're gonna get ready to be physical again, right? Fran Brown's gonna have to. This is gonna be the week where try to get LaQuint Allen. We have to be a little bit more physical, right? Obviously, I don't think UNLV can match up on the outside with any of the weapons that Syracuse has. But again, if it's a situation where Syracuse is, I'm not Syracuse, but if it's a situation where UNLV is able to control the clock with the run game, then it is going to make it a little bit more harder for Syracuse, right? Because one of the things that I've kind of noticed about Syracuse, the first couple of weeks of the season, is that when they get out front, they're gonna shine on you. And what I mean by that is that they're gonna keep their foot on the gas. And I love that about Fran Brown. I love that aggressiveness about the offense, right? But at the same time, Cal McCord gotta be you have to be more careful with the ball. You do not have to force anything. You don't have to force anything. If Trevor Pena is being bracketed, if Gatson is being bracketed, that means Hatcher Meeks are open somewhere. That means someone is leaving LaQuint Allen wide open in the flat or a check down, which again it's hard to guard them. It really is. To me personally, anytime Syracuse makes an error offensively, I don't think is except for if it's an offensive line situation, right? If it's not an offensive line situation, anytime Syracuse makes a mistake offensively, it's not to me. It's not something that the opposition did. It's a miscommunication by the quarterback, right? I have to say that because again, Kyle McCord, you again, like I said, second best quarterback in the ACC, bar none. I don't think it's questionable at this point. You're the second best quarterback in the ACC. Multiple touchdown passes, interceptions, a little up. But we're by far the second best quarterback in ACC, and you have to play at that level. You have to continue to play at that level. You cannot give possessions away to other teams, right? Especially against a team like UNLV. If they want to run the ball, you do not need to give them any additional possessions because if they're able to control the line of scrimmage like that they've been able to do for the majority of the season, then they don't need any additional help, right? So it's about this offense coming out fast, coming out hot, getting the lead, shining on them, and forcing UNLV out of their game. But again, I mean, it's easy to say to just make UNLV one dimensional, make them throw the ball, take the run game away. But unfortunately, I mean the pass coverage for Syracuse it's I would think it would be a little bit better than it is, but it's not. But again, like I said, it's still relatively early within the season. So the team, to me, hasn't pretty much hit its stride. I don't think they've played their best game yet. So, like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see. But I think this is going to be a very good matchup, right? Very good matchup. And right to me, right now they split those matchups in which I think the teams were kind of even. Obviously, one against Georgia Tech, loss against Stanford. Again, in the situation, and I go back to that against Stanford, where I felt like that they were still the best team, even though the result did not go in their favor. And honestly, I feel like they're the better team than UNLV. But just being the better team does not automatically give you a victory. You still have to go out there and you have to execute. You still have to go out there and play your brand of football. So, like I said, it's going to be very, very interesting to watch this game because I think if they win this game, it goes a long way in showing that some of the issues that they have right now that they're working diligently to solve them, right? But like I said, two things: minimize the turnovers, and if you have to bring in an additional guy to help block to shore up the protection, do that. Because again, if Kyle McCord has a clean pocket, he's dangerous, right? He's dangerous, right? But with that being said, man, that's pretty much all I got, man. Like I said, congrats to Syracuse. Another win. And I think again, if they upset UNLV, I think they'll, even though I feel like they should have been in the top 25 already, especially after the Georgia Tech victory. But obviously, you have the subsequent, Stanford loss. But I think if they beat UNLV, I do think that they will finally make it into the top 25, right? Because, like I said, UNLV is a good team, but but it's not going to be a pushover. Syracuse is going to have to work hard for this game, right? So, Fran Brown, Elijah Robinson, and the defensive staff, they're going to have to, they're going to have to make sure that they have this done. And not just putting the onus on the defensive staff, because the offensive staff, quarterback coach Michael Johnson, everybody involved with that, look, do not give them any additional possessions. Kyle McCord, do not allow for them to get any additional possessions because it's just going to make it harder, right? Just going to make it harder. With that being said, man, like, share, subscribe, comment, and let's get ready for another weekend of Syracuse football. Peace.